Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. It's been a busy day. I want to squeeze in some reading though. Baby's napping. Eldest is with her dad at karate. Food's in the oven. So, we gonna squeeze in some fatwas of Imam al Albani. He was touching on the issue of democracy. Okay? And he was giving several hadiths and ayats of the Quran for us. So he's going to continue upon that vein. Let us begin. Bismillah. Allah the Almighty also says, "And verily we have sent among every ummah, community, nation, a messenger, proclaiming, worship Allah alone, and avoid or keep away from tagut, anything worshipped besides Allah." An-Nahl 16:36. And He, the Almighty, says, "Have you not seen those who were given a portion of the scripture? They believed in Jibt and Tagut, and say to the disbelievers that they are better guided as regards the way than the believers, Muslims." An-Nisa 4:51. So here I notice, keep away from Tagut, something that you worship besides Allah. I still fumble in my mind with that concept, because in democracy, you're not worshipping democracy, but I understand that remember how Fatwas was just explaining what the word worship means? Putting your faith in something, ruling by something other than Allah, and establishing that as your compass in life, your guideline in life, and how you should govern, society. Because democracy is not created in Sharia law in the same way. Because democracy, demosocracy, the rule of the mob, as Plato put it, is not something that is good by definition. The minority can terrorize the majority, and the majority can terrorize the minority. Right? It's just a top-down system. You have the tiny group of elites here dictating down, or you have the bottom dictating up. So it just seems like a reverse pyramid. So we have quite of a different system here in Islamic jurisprudence. So we have to remember that vein of history. So he's going to give us some commentary now. So democracy and Islam can never coexist. Okay, so that's his stance. As a political science major and a Muslim, this is very beneficial for us. Either one believes in Allah and acts upon His laws, or one has faith in Tagut and acts upon its rules. And everything that contradicts Allah's law is considered Tagut. Okay, so here we go. So if something that contradicts the Sharia, not to take heed. Never mind those try to consider democracy as a kind of Islamic Shura council. Shura is resorted to in cases for which there is no clear ruling in the Quran or Sunnah, and only scholars who are known for their piety and fear of Allah to practice it. Democracy is the opposite to all this. That is a very good point. Okay, so sure, we're going to put SHURA as annotation on the top. Remember this, in democracy, you can be a total imbecile, and if you fit the parameters of the qualifications to vote, you're able to vote, right? The history of voting in America changed. It used to be landowners, right? Men only. Now women can vote, and I think it's now, if you haven't committed a crime, something like that, you're allowed to vote. And we amend what voting is, right? We amend it. And the 3/5 clause, like 3 slaves to 1 man. I don't remember that. We learned it when we were studying the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I'm pretty fuzzy on it. But there was a time, when I believe slaves couldn't vote. Now they don't have slaves, right? So we are amending it. But the key aspect here is, you see the difference. So only select scholars who have wisdom and piety and really understand Islam come together and then delegate. It sounds similar to Plato's philosopher kings, right? So that isn't just all Muslims come together and then decide that they can vote for something. Now, I don't know the difference between Shura and Kawama, I believe it's called. So that'd be interesting if he points that out later for us. But as American Muslim reverts, we do know that there are sheikhs who said, especially Asim Halakim, I remember he said Muslims can vote for the lesser of two evils as long as it's something that helps the Muslims, right? And I believe you can also use the voting system in order to get closer to the Sharia. It's like a stepping stone. You can vote in and convince people to vote for something that gets them closer to Sharia. For example, was it the Muslims and Christians in Michigan who banned some rainbow stuff from the schools? That's intelligent. They're using that system in order to become more pious. Because if you think about it, the Christians for a while held up their strong points. And then it fell apart once secular liberal atheists and occultists took over. But I think that we can move our nation, America, towards something more theocratic with time if we systematically strategize it. But you have to win the hearts and minds of people. You have to persuade them. You have to convince them that the liberals had their turn under the sun and it's time to try something different, which is to go back to traditionalism, in my personal opinion. 1. Pluralism is a branch of democracy that has two kinds: political pluralism and doctrinal conception pluralism. As for the doctrinal conception pluralism, it means that people living under the tent of democracy have freedom to believe in whatever they want. They could even leave Islam for another religion, be it the Judaism, Christianity, socialism, communism, or secularism, and this is indeed apostasy. Allah the Almighty says, "Verily those who have turned back have apostated to disbelievers. After the guidance had been manifested to them, Satan has beautified for them their false hopes, and Allah prolonged their term age. This is because they said to those who hate what Allah has sent down, we will obey you in part of the matter, but Allah knows their secrets." Muhammad 47:25-26. Allah also says, quote, "And whosoever of you turns back from his religion and dies as a disbeliever, then his deeds will be lost in this life and in the hereafter, and they will be the dwellers of the fire. They will abide therein forever." Al-Baqarah 2:217. So, apostatizing. And then he mentions the religions, leaving Islam and then going for socialism, communism. So this I find interesting, because I think he's getting at, in a socialistic and communistic state, those are linked to atheism. Atheists will only claim secularism. Sometimes the atheists, when I watch them in debates, they don't like saying communism is inherently atheistic because of the crimes and atrocities that atheistic communists have done, and socialists as well. So it's fascinating watching them romanticize socialism and communism as a utopian agenda that has no dark underbelly, and they do the no true Scotsman fallacy, right? So I think it's fascinating that he mentions that. So if you go to communism or socialism, it sounds as almost like he's letting us know that that's going to make you a dweller from the fire, because those are systems of ruling a society that go against the Sharia. So Marxism / communism goes against Islam. This is very important because Marxism is gaining traction. And then this would make further sense that communism, because of what China is doing to the Muslims, and they do it in the name of wanting to have cohesion, right? You can see that they see the Muslims as a problem, and then when you look at Sweden, who has a socialistic state, hybrid capitalistic socialistic state, but still an emphasis on socialism, taking Muslim kids away from their parents, so they see Muslims as a problem. So if you notice, in socialistic countries and in communistic countries, they find Islam to be a problem. And in Russia, if you look at the history of Russia, the Catholics, Christians and such, they were targeted by communists, right? And it's the Chinese communists who are actually rewriting the Bible. Look that up. They actually rewrote the Bible. And the Christians are persecuted there and held under the thumb of the atheistic communists. So I think it's very apt of him to point out how if you go into that route, you're really leaving Islam. It's quite fascinating. Allah also says, and whoever seeks a religion other than Islam, it will never be accepted of him, and in the hereafter, he will be one of the losers. Ali Imran 385. Now this, I think, is particularly important because I've noticed more and more people really becoming so new agey. I love everybody, you want to be this, you want to be that, and it's like, yeah, you can tolerate, right? Like the other day, I walked past a priest, and the other day there was some Tibetan monks, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. I'm in my, khimar and niqab outfit, Muslim garment, right? And you have 3 different faiths just walking down, not insulting each other or doing anything. So we're coexisting, but I think it's important for people to remember to stick to their faith's ideals of, if you don't belong to this faith, you'll go down. Us Christians will say that to us. Occultists will say they have the way. There's tons of bizarre niche new cults rising up and who are like, we have the way, we live in a video game, we're in a simulation, blah blah. Ancient astronaut theory. It's like, okay. But I think as Muslims we have to remember, we do not believe that all those people who are polytheists upon disbelief and work against what Allah commands are gonna be placed in the same position as us. That sounds harsh because you see people, you see them, and you're like, oh, they do good, and they're gonna burn in hell. It's a tough thought, but at the same time, this earth is pretty strange. And so, we're all in a competition to get to the best abode in the hereafter. So there's gonna be winners and losers at the end of the day, and that is life. As for the political pluralism, it means to open the way for any political group or party, whatever its ideas and beliefs, to rule the affair of Muslims through elections. This means to establish equality between Muslims and the disbelievers, and this contradicts the firm evidence that prohibits that Muslims be ruled by non-Muslims. Allah the Almighty says, and never will Allah grant to the disbelievers a way to triumph of the believers. An-Nisa 4:141. That's a good point. I never even thought of that. So notice what he said here. So this, as Muslims being... So we Muslims are better than the disbelievers. We're not on the same. We're not equal. A Muslim is not equal to a disbeliever. Because we see here, Allah doesn't want them to triumph over us. He's going to protect us. So, if He wants us to win, then we are the superior ones, and they are the inferior. To triumph over something is to assert dominance, to show you lost. You are to be subjugated, you are to be in your hierarchical position, and we are to have our hegemony. If you have a hegemonic system, you're not equal. Now, you can't just willy-nilly be like, you're not equal, so I get to do whatever I want to you. No, but it's who is more loved in the eyes of Allah, right? Who is more protected, right? The one who is protected is a believer. Now, everyone has the opportunity, right, to become Muslim, to practice monotheism, to stop worshipping idols, to stop being insane and following shaitan. They're given that, right? So they have to choose. They have to choose. I'll pause here because the alarm's going to go off for the oven. Alright, let me know what you think. This is a very interesting section because for us American Muslims, we have to really start thinking about this stuff. And he's got some really thick thought nuggets here for us that can help us navigate the landscape that is this political web that we find ourselves in. Very important. I hope you enjoyed. If you'd like to join my blog, www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Hope to see you there.